Hello everyone, we are here, back from vacation, and it was mostly good vacation.
Yeah. As good as a vacation with toddlers can be.
I got beat up quite a bit, but not by my children. I somehow had my ass handed to me by a hotel. What was it? What was it, like I got like a double concussion the first day we were there, and like a chair dropped on my foot. I looked like I had a second ankle on my right foot for like a week.
Yeah, I think you need a new prescription, honey.
I need my contact lenses because I don't have peripheral vision. There's nothing happening here.
Yeah, he was injuring himself right and left.
It was bad. It was bad. Like I actually slammed my head into a coat hanger hard enough that I fell out of it. I fell through the doorway.
You're blind, honey.
That was.
You're just used to being in our house and not going anywhere, and you know it very well, so you don't run into things as much. You still run into things.
What do I run into here? What? If I don't remember, it's the double concussion talking, guys.
Yeah, let's get some reviews going.
All right, yeah.
All right, Light Hero Kaiser, great chapter mate. Can't wait for more. That was sweet of Wudoraka, and Blake is leaving. I believe that is all Blake knows how to do is run away when things get bad. Stop giving up, Blake. Also, that screen with Kurai with his uncle was very sweet. Oh, on a new note, I got Kurai a gift. Drops the beaten bloody body of Moonfish, who was missing his right arm. I found him finally, and I got some payback. Played Hero Light signing out.
Well, Kurai thanks you.
All right, thank you. Now, Death Combo 99.
I think that's a new one.
I think so. I don't remember that one.
Well, welcome if you've been here before. I'm sorry we forgot you, but if not, welcome back. And if you're new, we're glad to see you here.
Yeah.
What do you got? What does Death Combo 99 have to say?
I feel like Kurai is gonna pull an avatar on All for One, like Aang did on Fire Lord Ozai, and just energy bend the quirk into dormancy or something. Lol.
That's a pretty interesting idea. But Energon doesn't work that way.
He can't manipulate other people's chi.
No, that's not how his quirk works.
Okay.
No, he produces. We'll find out more about his quirk eventually, but he basically produces a great amount of energy within himself and can vent it how he chooses.
But he can't control.
He can't control energy outside of himself. No.
Okay.
Or energy that didn't come from. Or energy that didn't come from him. But yeah, honestly, I wouldn't have thought of that. But that's a pretty interesting idea, man.
Yeah, thank you, Death Combo 99.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Fairy Sing Girl. Well, I'm glad Kurai is still alive and recovering from his near-death experience. Also, I like how we got to see his uncle again in the afterlife and talk with him for a while before being pulled back to the world of the living once more. Hey, dork.
Stop licking my couch.
No pugs were harmed in the making of this film. Okay. I'm gonna get all kinds of hate for that one.
I got all kinds of hate anyways.
It's fine.
What was I gonna say?
Right.
Yeah. I really like getting to show his interaction with his uncle. I think that's probably in my top 5 moments for this for this series so far.
I think that it also just kind of adds a little oomph to that, character development with this being somebody who really helped develop his personality. Hey, dork, stop licking the couch. Come here. Come cuddle. Come here, be cute. Click big pug. Come here. No, she says no. Okay. Thank you, Fairy Sing Girl. Sorry, ADD. All right. This is a very long one.
Silikira had quite a few things to say.
Whoa. All right, Silikira. Wow, I didn't think you were actually going to let us have a mental breakdown for the rest of the story, but this actually feels like a mental break. Sorry. Breakdown. That's where I'm at. I didn't think you were actually going to let us have a mental break for the rest of this story, but this actually feels like an okay place to be, as a reader anyway. Hikari is alive and will recover, which is a big relief to me. Because I really love him as a hero and as a character in general. I didn't want his story to end yet. Of course, on the other hand, I now have to wonder just what in the hell you have in mind for when he actually does die. Speaking of dying, I really liked him getting to see his uncle again. I liked how you arranged the scene so that even though he's being shown the afterlife, we already know that his life has already been saved, or something to that effect. I'm still not 100% on whether or not he actually died, but I suppose there are enough unusual cases on people seeing the hereafter, even if their bodies don't completely give out, that I guess it doesn't matter too much. Yep. Shiro seems to be like a really cool guy, and even though he's been dead for a long time, I find myself wishing that we had had more time with him. He encourages his nephew so much in short time, even though things aren't going to be looking good for him, which I get the feeling our hero will need before all is said and done. Also, he seems to ship Mina and Kurai almost as hard as I do, so I am all about it. Kurai really looks up to him. Tell me if I need to pause at any point. Even though more than the narrative has allowed us to see so far. And I'd love to see more of that dynamic. Maybe a flashback or two with him could happen, please. Pretty please.
We'll pause right there for a second. So that's actually kind of what I was going for. Like, I wanted this character to be someone that people, would want to see more of. But he's dead.
Yeah, but hey,
flashbacks could happen. Maybe. Yeah, this I'm glad. My point is
I don't remember if you have any plans or not.
I'm glad that people seem to like this character because he's someone that Kurai has looked up to for most of his life, even though Shiro's been dead for most of his life. But yeah, I'm glad that people like him so much, and like.
Just because of the name, this has never happened before, but for some reason, I'm picturing the character from Voltron now. I know that's so random.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
That just randomly popped into my head, and I'm like, hey!
That's
Sorry,
funny.
Continue. I mean, he's not that different looking. Anyway, keep going.
I suppose. No, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without sounding like I'm bragging, but so just bear with me for a second.
You're not good at that, honey.
I know, but just bear with me for a second. How do I put this? I'm trying to think of a character where it's like they weren't there for very long, but they leave such an impact that you can't help but remember them for the rest of the story.
I feel like there'd be somebody in Avatar.
Yeah,
those lines.
That's what I'm trying. I can't remember.
Zuko's mom.
Yeah, could be.
You hardly see her, but you're always
she's
just
such a huge impact.
What a lady,
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a good. Or like Zhang maybe. The guy.
Oh yeah.
He's literally in only three or four episodes. Mm-hmm. He appears once in the first season, and then he appears during Sozin's Comet. Parts 3 and 4, I want to say, or 2, 3, and 4. But yeah, he's not there very often, or Sokka's master Piandao.
Piandao's okay. I think I'm not a huge
Well, now that you mentioned Last Airbender, I feel like maybe subconsciously that's where
this
characters
that.
That's where that role might have come from, because he's not present in Kurai's life, but he taught him so much that he continues to live on in his actions. You get what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, no, I got that a lot.
Yeah. Definitely. So that's what I was going for.
Or maybe like Aragon, where he has the guy who mentors him at the very
Braum?
Yeah. Braum from
the
Inheritance Cycle.
That's true. Yes.
He's a character that you see very, very little, but he impacts the rest of the story.
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
I think that's
a better one.
That's more similar to this. Because it's somebody who dies very early on.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry if that's a spoiler, but the books
have been out for
time ago.
The books have been out for 15 years at this point.
They're great.
They are awesome.
Yeah. He forced me to read them when we were first married, and I'm so glad he did. Anyway, all right.
So I'm just glad that people are seeing this character the way that I wanted him to be seen.
Yay! All right. Okay, you ready for me to go on?
Go for it.
Okay. Sorry, I know bragging. Oh, hey, it doesn't look good on anyone. That's so funny.
Said begging doesn't look good on
begging. See, my brain is gone. I'm sorry. Sorry, I know begging doesn't look good on anyone. I'll move on to the next thing that caught my attention. That, of course, being his family's reaction to his decision to keep being a hero corps student. I gotta say, this one really threw me off. And for the first time, I'm not entirely sure that it's in a way that I like or understand.
Uh-oh.
I'll start by saying that I'm not a parent, so I obviously can't sympathize with your thought process. So take what I say with a grain of salt. All that being said, it just seems like almost outlandish to me that his parents have literally no reservations about their son continuing to put himself in the line of fire, given what has happened not only to him, but also to his brother. I didn't expect them to stand in his way, per se, but I definitely expected more resistance from them, given the circumstances.
I mean, the only thing I can say to that, I feel like, is that every family dynamic is different.
That's true.
Like, I probably would be freaking out more about...
if it was our kid.
If it was our kid, I'd probably be freaking out more about it. Although, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure, because, like, I feel like... Because John wanted to go into a branch of the Air Force that has a very high fatality rate. Mm-hmm. And I think kind of out of everybody around, I was kind of the only one who was okay with it, because I was like... Well, if this is what he wants to do, if he thinks this is what's going to make a difference, if this is what he believes his life is worth, then he should be allowed to continue it.
I feel like at the end of the day, your parents were nervous, but they also kind of accepted his decision.
Yeah.
And they chose to support him. And it didn't end up working out for life reasons.
Yeah.
But I think if he had just decided to take that path,
they would have supported him.
They would have supported him.
Well, yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where they wouldn't have said anything, because once you make that commitment, you know, you can't...
You can either support them or get out of the way.
Yeah. But there's a lot of family dynamics that are not like that.
This is true.
With my family, the way I grew up, it's much more tight-knit and controlling rather than, like, kind of letting everyone kind of do their thing.
Yeah.
But it seriously depends. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because some families are very close and very, like, you know, everybody really cares about...
Yeah.
Like, emotions lead, right? And so, but yeah, I think... It's hard, but I've also seen a lot of, like, military moms and, like, wives of police officers who, after a while, they get this grit about them because they know
somebody's got to do the job.
Somebody's got to do that job.
And I think for the Hogisher parents, it's like there's very few people who can do the job as well as their son, even crippled as he is now.
And his mom has a taste of it because she knows her husband puts his life on the line every day, and so in order to make that kind of marriage work, she would have had to reach a point where she has to have an open hand when it comes to those relationships. Yeah. Because I mean, I feel like they're more upset about Akururi's thing, like, because, you know, he didn't set out to be a hero. He didn't set out to be in law enforcement, so that would have been a complete shock to them. But with Hikari, that's a part of the job. That's something that could have happened. No one said it outright, but there's always the acknowledgement in the back of your mind. It's like something like this could happen. Yeah, and so for me, I have the kind of personality where I'm just so grateful that you are not, like, in the armed forces or doing that kind of, like, work, because I would be an anxious wreck all the time, and I'd have to really do a lot of growth to come to a place where I'm okay with it. But there's a lot of people who have the kind of personality where they can have that faith in their, you know, spouse or significant other or whatever, or children, to let them go and know that they're doing this for the greater good, even if it's hard. Yeah. Right? And so I can kind of see both ways, because I think I totally get where you're coming from, though, because, like, the way my family is, I would not react like that. I think I've changed a little bit just because I've been married to him as long as I have. Yeah. We're coming up in what, 4 years here? So it's not a long time. We're still babies, but, you know. We've been together almost 10 years, though. So we have been together for 10 years. I thought it was 9. Oh, you're right. It's next year that it's 10 years. You're right. February. 6 months. Yeah, that's right. 9.5. Yep. Damn. I'm the child who says and a half. Okay. Anyway. You're 5'4.5" too? All right. for telling everyone my height. Now they're going to steal my identity. They know what city I live in. They know my name. They know my height. Whatever.
That's not your height.
Fine. Yeah, you're right. I'm not that tall.
No, you're not that short.
We're just going to move on. You're missing a 0.5 somewhere. All right. But that's just my 2 cents. And if nothing else, I suppose they recognize Hikari is going to need... Okay, I got... Sorry, I read that part already.
No, you didn't.
Oh, no? Oh, okay. But that's my 2 cents. And if nothing else, I suppose they recognize that Hikari is going to need all the encouragement he can get, no matter what he does next. Do with my opinion what you will, but I will say before I write anything else that I still enjoyed this chapter a great deal. Now, on to the other visitors.
Oh, this little part is next in all caps lock.
Gosh, dang it, man, stop making Ashido cry so much! That whole aspect of this story is hurting way more than I thought it could. And then you actually get Hikari crying like a little kid, and the next thing I know, it's raining exclusively in front of my eyes. I love that. That was very well said. He does that to me too. I understand. Fortunately, I had windshield wipers so that I could keep reading and see that their relationship is actually evolving into something really special that makes me feel warm fuzzies again. How do I put this? The conversation that they have where he breaks down and asks her for help because he knows he's hit his limit is so well done, man. It really shows how much everything has been weighing on him until now. Because, as I understand it, he would normally choose to have his brother or Ida to confide in. But since Akurui is sick and his relationship with Ida is still being mended, he's been bottling so much up inside. And now he can only turn to Ashido because he knows that she loves him. And because she understands firsthand just what kind of horrors the League has subjected them to thus far. Also, his fear of being a liability to the others because of his actions was well played and well handled by Ashido. It's good to see that he won't be like Deku in the original and try to internalize everything, because I get the feeling that a kid who hasn't been able to vent emotions like a normal person up until recently with a power like Energon having a breakdown would be a prime recipe for disaster.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Seriously. I know I've said this before, but Ashido should get the Girlfriend of the Year award because been worried to death about Hikari, and now she has to keep him from falling apart while maintaining her own sanity is something else, man. She better get a happy ending out of this all somehow, dude. She's been through more than enough to deserve it. I did like the scene with Todoroki, and did you want to address that at all before I move on?
He's a simp. I'm sorry, dude.
That was a very Smeagol laugh.
I had to say it.
Oh. It's okay, we all are. Everyone here is. Let's be real. Let's be real.
That's fair.
I did like the scene with Todoroki and Ida a lot. I thought that you would send in Midoriya as one of the people he talked to, but this grouping made a lot of sense once the scene started playing out. Also, Uraraka donating blood for him was a really nice touch. And I liked the little detail that you included where it's better for people to only donate strictly to their blood types in this world. Is that a canon thing, or did you make it up?
I believe I made that up. It just seemed like, yeah, I haven't read anything in the My Hero material that says that post the human evolution with quirks that you have to give like A negative to A negative and not A negative to A plus, for example. But it seemed like a good detail to add, to just a little fun thing to add in. Like they talk about how like the human feet evolved a little differently. Like that's just a weird little thing that they throw in. So I figured this would be kind of my weird little thing to throw in.
All right.
But I mean, I guess I felt like it fit.
Mm-hmm. And I think because it kind of reminded me of the Doctor and his kids from the movie.
The Doctor and his kids from which movie?
They're both island movies. The second one.
The second one. Oh, okay. The dad's not a doctor.
I thought he was.
No, he's like a construction dude or something. But he works on the mainland for the most part. He's not a doctor.
I'm so confused. I thought he was a doctor. I'm crazy. I need to go watch that movie again. Apparently, I've never been on live television before, and I lost my spot. Either way, it's a little like things that, if you guys didn't get my reference, you need to look that up, by the way.
No, you don't.
Either way, it's the little things that help make a world feel more authentic. So nice job there. Yeah, I liked that too.
Thank you.
Poor Ida, already taking things to a personal level. Here's hoping we don't have a stain relapse. You wouldn't do that, would you?
Stay tuned and find out.
Also, Todoroki coming in with PTSD from losing his fire. Using his fire on his friend. I know it was his mom who burned him, but I still hold Endeavor responsible for all of that. And it seems like he does too, even if unconsciously. Yeah, we do too. I know people who don't, which, like, makes me really mad, because I'm just like, there's something wrong with you, because, like, clearly Endeavor is responsible. Like, yeah,
he didn't throw the water on his face,
but yes, like, in the moment, it was a bad choice, but it was also a person who was in incredible, like, distress and turmoil.
Who had been run down to a point where she couldn't totally understand the consequences of what she was going to do.
Yeah, so it's like, it was the person who drove her to that point and kept her around the children that is responsible. And so,
if he was if he was really worried about her, he would have put her in a hospital before something like that happened.
But he's the one who caused her to have the breakdown to begin with because of his abuse. So yes, I agree. I think there's very few people who don't agree with you there. I know some, which is shocking, but we're going to move on.
Or we're going to be here all night.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That reminds me. The one thing I made a face at with Hikari's uncle was that he vouched for Endeavor. The guy who basically got him killed. I know it makes him a good person and all that, but no, I have nothing. I'm just being petty because I don't like Endeavor. Joe's on your team, bro. I know there's like this kind of redemptive arc that's starting to happen.
I still hate him. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
like at the end of season 4, I won't lie, I was cheering for him for a hot minute, and then after that I'm just like, you still suck. You deserve that scar on your face.
Yeah, God. Excellent chapter, and I can't wait.
Should have lost his eye while he was at it.
Yeah. How Hikari and or Ashido, there's some savagery that happens after that fight. That I honestly could not believe was canon, and I was so happy when it was. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to. It was hilarious. Anyway, sorry, my allergies are like. Gosh! Okay. Whew. Where are we? Excellent chapter. I can't wait to see how Hikari and or Ashido talk Blake out of leaving UA. Yes, I'm making a firm prediction that the Shadowcat girl doesn't really leave, because I just don't see how you could have brought in a character whom you yourself said has much more potential just to get rid of her so quickly. I still don't know the how of it, so give me the next chapter so that I can have the answers.
Give it like 5 minutes, dude. We'll get there.
Bro, the next chapter. Oh man, you thought this one was good? Last note, I was dying laughing when Hikari was asking for handshakes. I know it's morbid, but it's also pretty morbid to have him make that joke. So it's your fault that I'm laughing at bad things. Am I a bad person?
I think we're all bad people, man.
I think I've been married to you for so long because it didn't even bother me. All right. Joe Clown. Thank you, Silly Kita. That was a wonderful review.
Thank you, sir.
I always enjoy reading through all of that. Very good thoughts. All right. Joe Clown. Last but not least, how to put this into words. It's been too long since you posted it.
Nah, you're still in time, man.
What a change. Kurai lives. Awesome. He's lost his arm, and therapy will happen. Okay. A streak of silver hair. That I didn't expect. I bet you're definitely going to be revising his design for the video thumbnails now. It's so impressive that he's still alive and going to keep pushing harder to be a hero.
Real quick pause on the thumbnail thing. I'm not going to be changing the thumbnail art anytime soon because I don't have any digital art to go along with the story right now. And the picture that's up on the thumbnails is mostly concept image. It's mostly a concept of how I originally pictured him, and there's obviously been some changes since I first came up with this character. Mm-hmm. The silver hair was actually like kind of a last minute thing that I threw in, because like I mentioned before, his character design was meant to be even more boring than Midoriya's, but with something like this happening, I figured spice it up a little bit more. I don't know what it was. I don't know what was the phrase I should have used there. Don't judge me.
I'm not. I'm just laughing with you. All right. That I didn't expect. I bet you're definitely going to be revising it. Okay, that's right. I read that part. It's so impressive that he's still alive, still going to far harder to be a hero. Sorry. He's acting really mature. Now we got the doctor. Speaking of, he's a really cool addition. Thanks to his creator for letting you make use of him.
Yeah. Yes, the artist is really cool. I believe I posted a link to their social media in the last chapter video. Mm-hmm. So if you still want to check them out, please go do so. They're very talented.
All right. Mina, Ida, Todoroki, and his immediate family seen his condition after waking up. How will Izuku and All Might and the rest of the class at 1A react? That's one thing I'll expect to see in the next chapter.
You will not be disappointed.
I hope Kurai or someone can talk sense into Blake. Honey, we don't need to have you run away after a tragedy like Beacon Incident to show you're in the show you're from. I like the sass, but stay and fight Belladonna. You're needed, valued, trusted, and loved. Don't break that report. I'm loving it. I love every moment from this from the doctor's hectic procedure to the NDE to Mina staying with Kurai at the end.
NDE? I don't know what that means. Please help me, dude. I don't know what that means.
His hectic procedure. Near-death experience.
Near-death experience. Okay, all right.
We're slow. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. As we usually
We're
say.
not even filming that late right now.
I know. I'm usually yawning at this point, but I had coffee today. So, I've only yawned a couple times. All right. Tamina staying with Kurai at the end. Hope you have a good vacation, Mataris.
Like I said, I had a pretty good vacation for the most part, other than
screaming babies.
Other than screaming babies and somehow getting my ass kicked by inanimate objects.
It was good.
I still don't understand how all
right,
of that happened.
They're gonna go insane. We need to give them the chapter.
2 hours. All right, yep. I'll give you guys the next chapter. It's gonna be a little bit of a longer one, and it's gonna be a doozy. So buckle in. Be back in a bit. Night terrors. Of all the ways that Mina Ashido had imagined being in a bed with her boyfriend, the thought of keeping him company after a villain had nearly killed him was not something that she had thought up. Although given their chosen profession, she supposed that she should have seen it coming. Just not like this. Not as young as they were, not so fresh in the world of heroics. They were supposed to be worrying about nothing more than math tests and combat practices, not whether they would live to see the next day. Such things were supposed to be in the realms of adulthood, several years away from them, but here they were anyway. As she lay next to him on the hospital bed underneath a couple of comfortable blankets, she found herself unable to tear her eyes away from the bloodied stump that remained in one place of a once mighty limb. That hideous wound had already warped his body beyond the obvious. He had lost a surprising amount of weight in 3 days. The lines in his gaunt face had hardened, and a shock of silver hair had appeared on the right side of his head, stretching from the nape of his neck to just in front of his ear, and crawling up past his temple. He had endured harsh beatings before, but not on this level, neither physical nor psychological. Now all that Mina could do was listen to him sleep fitfully under the influence of painkillers fed to him via an IV drip, silently cursing the villain that had done this to him.
It's a good thing that guy's already on death row. I might just get Kurai's cop dad to leave me alone with the guy long enough for my quirk to accidentally turn him into a puddle. As the dark thought crossed her mind, she felt another few tears sliding out of her face. She nearly wiped out them, but she didn't want to accidentally jostle Kurai awake just yet. It had been difficult for him to find sleep, even with the knowledge that she would be with him for the night, and she wanted him to get as much rest as possible before he was made to face cruel reality once more. So she let the tears fall into their pillow, wishing with all her might that she could reach over and grab his right hand, and let him know that it had all been a bad dream, and that it was time for them to go and endure one of Aizawa's stupid tricks again. But his hand wasn't there, and it wasn't a nightmare that they could wake up from. First his uncle, then his brother, and now this, she thought glumly. Is it too much to ask that he would be able to catch a break just once? He had dozed off for a while the previous day, long enough that he was able to muster up the energy to see the rest of his classmates, sans the American girls and of course Bakugo. Everyone had been very kind to him, volunteering to help him however they could, offering to bring him homemade meals, any movie that he wanted to watch. Yairozu, somewhat to Kurai's surprise, even offered to more or less give him copies of her class notes as soon as their studies resumed, provided that he wasn't able to attend school by then. When Midoriya and Uraraka came in, Mina noted that the brunette was sticking closer to their green-haired friend a little more than she normally did, but she decided to ask the other girl about it later. For his part, Kurai made sure to thank Uraraka for the blood transfusions, to which she replied that she was more than happy to do so. It also seemed to him that Midoriya wanted to talk about something other than their respective recovery time expectations, but he said nothing outright. The maimed boy decided to text him in private later, something that he realized was going to be significantly harder to do now, as he had been right-handed before the summer camp. Maybe it's something about All Might. The only somewhat bad part that happened was when Kaminari offered to bring him a PlayStation Mach 9 for entertainment, only to remember that the controller required 2 hands to use. Since Jiro wasn't present to reprimand the boy for his behavior, Sue used her tongue to smack Kaminari in the back of the head for his insensitivity. Recovery Girl visited him to give him a small healing session and to change his bandages, which Kurai refused to look at while she worked. He knew that he would have to see the ruined limb without the wrappings eventually, but for now he just wanted to try and ignore the ugly sight. The youthful heroine offered her condolences once she was finished, and then she departed to go and look in on the other students. As soon as visiting hours were close to being over, Kurai's mother had returned with an overnight bag, but she had stopped in the door when she saw Mina gently caressing her son's head, lulling him into a shallow sleep. The pink girl had looked up at the older woman, startled, but she managed not to wake up her boyfriend as she got up off the bed and moved toward the entrance. Mrs. Hogasha, are you planning to stay with him for the night? Milka asked bluntly, bits of her husband's no-nonsense attitude manifesting itself in that moment. Despite her brusqueness, she kept her voice lowered as to not wake her son. Yes, ma'am. Mina nodded quickly, using the same volume as the other woman. He asked me to. I'm sure he did. The older Hikari murmured. Under any other circumstances, I would have you removed from his room while I grounded him to his father's favorite holding cell down at the station. Mina's eyes widened slightly, but she said nothing, waiting to hear his mother's verdict, just in case there was a chance that she wouldn't make a scene. Mocha eyed her critically for another few seconds before she continued in a relatively neutral tone. With the shape that he's in, I doubt that he would be up for letting his hands water, so to speak. Mina had glanced back at Kurai, hoping that he hadn't heard that last comment. But his mother clicked her fingers sharply, bringing her attention back to her. Eyes on me, Miss Ashido. That's my son lying there, and as you can see, he's going to have a rough life ahead of him. Even if he gets a prosthetic, he won't be able to use his quirk out of that arm, which would make having a successful career that much harder on him. He doesn't need an extra burden on his shoulders in addition to all that has already happened to him. If you were going to stay the night with him, you're going to do it on 2 conditions. The older woman cut her off swiftly, fire in her violet eyes that frightened Mina in a way that no villain ever could. Seeing this, Kurai's mother nodded with satisfaction before saying, First off, you will not even entertain the idea of doing anything indecent with my son. Wouldn't dream of it, ma'am. That was a total lie, but she certainly wasn't going to act on any of those thoughts with the curtain situation being the way that it was. Good. The second condition is that if you ever dump him, I will personally make you disappear. Mina flinched and instinctively reached up to rub her neck while Mocha continued to put the fear of God in her. If my son breaks up with you, that's one thing. I can accept that. If it's a mutual break, I'll even let that slide. But if you ever break his heart, there won't be enough physical evidence left from my husband's forensics department to even identify your remains as human. Do I make myself clear? Mina had stared into the eyes of death twice now, once at the USJ and once during her internship with Mr. Brave. Neither of those occasions had made her tremble like she had in that moment, or made her feel as though ice was creeping its way up her spine and into her skull. It was all she could do to swallow past the sandpaper in her throat and say, "Yes, ma'am." Because there wasn't a single molecule in her body that doubted that Kurai's mother wouldn't do what she was promising to do. "Good girl," Hikari said with a charming smile as she stepped away from the door. "Call me if he needs anything and get some rest. I'd say you two kids have earned it." "Wait, Mrs. Hogasha." "Hmm?" The woman stopped and turned back to look at the pink girl with a raised eyebrow. I love your son," she confessed, her face blushing lilac as she looked down at the floor. "I'd never do anything to hurt him, promise." "I believe that you're in love with him," the elder woman replied after a moment, causing Mina to lock eyes with her again. "But just as it's easy to fall in love, it's also very easy to fall out of it." "But what does that mean?" Kurai's mom sighed and walked back over to where Mina stood before replying. "People often confuse infatuation and love for the same thing, Ashido. Love, real love, is a decision that you make daily. It means caring for them during the times where he makes you feel like you're the queen of his world, but also on the days where you want to put his head through a wall. It's the ultimate commitment. So I will ask you again, are you prepared to stay with my son, knowing what I'll be expecting of you?" "Yes, ma'am." Mina finally looked at Kurai's mother with a firm resolve that saw to her straightening her back and standing with confidence in front of the woman. "Like I said before, I do love Kurai. I wouldn't be here otherwise." Milka smiled as she turned around again, saying over her shoulder, "Prove it, kid." Mina shuddered a little as she recalled the previous evening, deciding that it would be better if she got out of bed before Kurai's mother had a chance to come in and jump to any unfavorable conclusions. Yawning broadly as she moved toward the sink, she picked up her phone from where she had left it and checked her notifications. She was mildly surprised to see a message from her oldest brother, Mako, so she opened that first. "Just got in last night with Micah. Heard from Mom and Dad that you were at the hospital with your boyfriend. Need anything?" The contents of the message surprised her. Like she had told Kurai, her relationship with her brothers wasn't the greatest one. Then again, they'd be pretty much marked as human scum if they didn't check on their kid's sister after she survived a villain attack. She thought as she began to type her reply. After the USJ incident, she had spoken with him briefly in a group call where their parents were present, but she hadn't heard from them since, except for the odd email or social media post. "Not right now, thanks for asking," she wrote. "How was the bar exam?" Closing that conversation, she was then intrigued to see that she had a message from an unfamiliar number. What's this? Clicking it open, she was surprised again when she read, "This is Blake. Is it okay if I visit Hikari today? I had something that I needed to tell him." She was with him and the others when he got injured, Mina remembered. Her fingers flying, she answered, "Yeah, I'll let you know as soon as he's ready for visitors. Just one question, who gave you my number?" Before she could put the phone down, she got a reply from her brother that read, "Aced it. You're talking to Japan's hottest new lawyer." Shaking her head in amusement, Mina replied, "Any chances of you being able to sue the League of Villains for psych damage?" Just then, of course, Blake messaged her back. "I'm in the hospital with the other girls visiting Yang. Asui gave me your number when I said that I wanted to get in touch without coming close to Hikari. Not sure that he wants to see me, but thanks for keeping me posted." Weird. Why does she think that? Mina frowned as she added Blake as a new contact in her phone. Kurai didn't say anything about her this whole time, good or bad. Probably because he's more concerned about losing an arm. Her phone buzzed again, but she hardly noticed it, as that's when she heard some grunting sounds coming from where Kurai lay on the bed. Turning around in alarm, she gasped as she watched him tossing and turning in his sleep, muttering in an almost frenzied manner while he reached out blindly with his left hand, trying to grasp what, she wasn't sure. Because his mask had been removed the previous evening, it was just making it that much easier for him to move around right then. Dropping her phone on the floor without a second thought, she rushed to his bedside as his heart monitor began to beat more rapidly, alerting her to an accelerated heart rate on his end. No, she said as she put her hands on his good shoulder and chest, trying to keep him from thrashing around too much. "Kurai, sweetie, listen to me. You're gonna bust your stitches if you keep doing— Gah!" Her shriek was drawn out of her as his subconscious activated his quirk, enhancing his strength enough to fling her against the wall, stunning her as her head hit the door, followed by the floor. Ow. This was followed by a silence so complete that it made the heart monitor sound like a fire alarm with batteries about to expire. "Mina?" Kurai asked groggily, his voice shaking. "Mina, are you—" "I'm okay," she grunted as she forced herself to get to her feet. This proved to be a bad idea as her head swam and she all but fell onto her boyfriend's legs and groaned as nausea assaulted her stomach. "Less okay." "Did I—" he started to ask, but then stopped, already knowing the answer. "I'm so sorry, Mina. I was having a bad dream and I guess I—" "Dude." Mina awkwardly swung her hand up and over so that it landed awkwardly on his chest. I'm all good. Just give me an Advil and some coffee and I'll be good as new. But dude, I will roll over there and kiss you if that's what it takes to shut you up. She grunted as she lifted her head slightly to look into his worried eyes. I'll just puke, but the two are unrelated. You didn't do it on purpose. I forgive you, so let's move on. She even gave him a crooked smile to show him that she was okay. Internally, however, she vowed to prank him for this as soon as he was capable of going home. Down an arm or not, that really hurt. She thought as her head, back, and right shoulder throbbed painfully. Trying to focus on something else for the moment, she asked, do you remember what you were dreaming about that freaked you out so much? Yeah. His voice sounded haggard as if he had just run a marathon without drinking anything for a whole day beforehand. I saw him. Moonfish. I was back in the forest. Oh. Mina wasn't really sure what she was supposed to say to that. I guess I can understand why you would have woken up the way that you did. She now felt bad about her sudden urge to get back at him, so she racked her aching head for a way to make it up to him. It was you. His sudden utterance took her by surprise, leaving her wondering at what those three words meant. What was me? Instead of Bakugo, it was you in the forest, he said in a dull tone. Mina slowly lifted herself off of his legs as he continued to mumble. Everything else is the same. I can smell the fire and poison in the air. I can feel the ground beneath my feet, the pain in my head from overusing my quirk, the pounding in my chest that tells me I'm about to die. He clenched his hand into a fist as his tone became bitter. The only thing that's different is that you're the one Moonfish is after, and I just... A deep, shuddering breath caused his body to tremble as he managed to get out. I'm not fast enough this time. You're torn to pieces in front of me, and then I can feel his teeth tearing me apart. Could I stop? Mina begged him as she reached over and grabbed his left hand, which had unconsciously seized his right arm, and started squeezing the ruined limb with an intensity born from his powerful quirk. You're hurting yourself. Glancing down at the wrappings, which were beginning to show crimson spots again, he cursed and lay back on the pillows, the tears in his eyes impossible to miss. Great, he said bitterly as he glanced at her before quickly looking away. You mind calling the nurse so I can get this fixed? Sure, the pink girl said as she reluctantly released his hand and reached for the remote. Tapping the button that connected her to the nurse's station, she cleared her throat and said, This is Hogasha's room. Some of his stitches seem to have come undone. He's bleeding through the bandages again. We'll be there momentarily, said the man on the other end. Try to keep pressure on the wound until we do. Yes, sir. The line went dead and she put the remote/phone down as she looked around the room for something in the way of a first aid kit that could help them. Do they have towels in the bathroom? Kurai grunted. Apparently they had decreased the amount of painkillers that he had been receiving overnight, because he could definitely feel some soreness in his right arm now. Right, yeah, Mina confirmed as she dashed over to the room and grabbed a large piece of fabric. Returning swiftly, she hesitated in front of his wound and asked, is it okay if I, Yeah, just be gentle, he requested as he shut his eyes against a new wave of pain. I don't know if it's because that nurse's quirk finally wore off completely or what, but this really hurts now. That might be more because you kind of just used your quirk to beat yourself up, Mina pointed out as she put the towel on him, applying pressure like the nurse had instructed. Yeah, just... Ow! Oh! Got any distractions? Mina grinned slyly at him despite the situation and said, I can think of a few things. Things that don't involve my heart rate going up any more than it already is, he added, knowing how her mind worked. I'm losing blood, remember? Buzzkill, dude. Mina? He muttered as he squeezed his eyes tight against a new wave of pain. Distraction, please. Sweat beaded on his face and his heart monitor was alerting them to his increased pace again. Well, you're really limiting my options here, she said, forcing a smile into her voice despite feeling sick at how much pain Kurai had to be in. Belladonna said that she wanted to come and see you later, if that's okay. Sure, he grunted, confusion further distorting his features. Why wouldn't it be? I don't know, she seemed to think that you were mad at her or something. Why would I... Oh. Gritting his teeth, he hissed out, Yeah, she and I kind of had an argument on our way to the campgrounds. All things considered, though, I really don't care anymore. Cool, I'll let her know that she can come up. Preferably after my arm gets stitched back together. Right, sorry. Hey, Mina. Yeah? She looked at him as he cracked his eyes open, a film of tears still residing in front of his brown orbs. Thanks for being here. He unclenched his fist and laid his hand on her arm, adding, I know I'm being difficult, but this means the world to me. Yeah, well. The girl blushed as she leaned over to kiss his fingers and murmured, Don't get used to it, Buster. You better believe I'm going to make you pay me back with interest for all this. Any chance that we can increase the rate of interest? He half laughed, though the expression was ruined by another grimace born from his agony. Despite this, it made Mina smile just a little bit to hear him sound like his usual self, even if just for a second. The nurses came in and had Mina wait outside while they redid Kurai's stitches, leaving her free to message Blake with the news that he was willing to see her once the staff was done with him. Resigned to waiting for a little while, the girl went down the hall to make herself some coffee, grimacing when she saw that the hospital only had the cheap stuff. I should ask Sue to bring something better, she muttered to herself as she reached for the bland-looking packet. You're not seriously going to drink that sorry excuse of a coffee, are you? Mina turned around, surprised to see Weiss standing in the doorway to the pantry, who was holding a clear plastic can that looked suspiciously like coffee grounds to the pink girl. Unless you're offering to share, I don't really have much of a choice. Mina shrugged as she gestured to the contents of the can. I had a rude wake-up call a little while ago, so I need something to get going or I'm going to be a wreck all day. Weiss tilted her head at Mina as if studying her for a moment before she strode toward the countertop where the kettle was heating up. How do you take your coffee, Miss Ashido? She reminded the white-haired girl. And I usually have cream and 5 sugars. Weiss snickered at that, prompting Mina to cross her arms and ask, What? Ruby takes the exact same thing. She chuckled as she grabbed a few cups from the shelf. No wonder you seem to have so much energy all the time. Oh, the pink girl said, feeling a little silly for getting defensive with the American girl. Well, thanks for making. I was getting some for the others, so it's not too much trouble. Weiss shrugged as she began to put different requested items in the cups. Glancing at the other girl out of the corner of her eye, she then asked, Did you spend the night here? Yeah, Mina yawned, making sure to cover her mouth as she hadn't brushed her teeth yet. Kurai didn't want to be alone, so I kept him company. Ugh. They're redoing his stitches right now, so I thought I'd come down for a coffee break. The other girl said neutrally. Mina half expected her to make some comment about such actions reflecting badly on their student body, but all Weiss did was move on to say, Ruby stayed overnight with Yang since she's the only family in town. Blake and I came back with Recovery Girl since she's going to be our hostess while we stay in Japan. Recovery Girl is here already? Mina asked, suddenly feeling a little more awake. How long has she been in the hospital? We got in like 15 minutes ago. She's just finishing up with Yang and then she's going to go over to see her boyfriend. Weiss hesitated before she turned to look at Mina with the words, I'm sorry about what happened to him, by the way. I know we got off to a bad start, and I'm not still quite sure what I think of him, but no one deserves what happened to him. Thanks, Mina said a little awkwardly. Do you, he can have visitors now as long as it's 3 people or less at a time. Maybe later. Weiss replied politely as the kettle began to boil. I'm sure he'd rather have company that he gets along with right now. I'd be rude to disturb whatever peace he can manage at the moment, and I know that I can be difficult. A small sigh escaped the pale girl's lips with the last word, but Mina thought it best not to comment on the matter. A strange silence, neither hostile nor friendly, descended upon the pair of aspiring heroines until the coffee was ready, and Mina thanked the other girl for the beverage. As she turned to leave, Weiss said, Text Blake. Huh? If you need more coffee, I mean. Weiss's back was to Mina, but she seemed sincere with her words. I have more if you or Hikari need it. This hospital has decent food, but the beverages are downright terrible. A small smile turned Mina's lips upwards at the kind gesture. Thanks, Shni. That's really nice of you. You're welcome, Ashido. The albino girl acknowledged. Now go see your boyfriend. I'm sure that his stitches are done by now. After Recovery Girl's visit was complete, most of Kurai's bleeding stopped, and he only required relatively light bandages. The session clearly left him feeling tired, but he refused to go back to sleep, in spite of the older woman's advice to do so, not wanting to risk another nightmare so soon after the most recent one. In order to distract him from his pain and exhaustion, Mina invited Blake into the room so that she could talk to him about whatever was on her mind. The raven-haired girl came in with hardly a sound to announce her presence. Even the door seemed to move more silently than normal. Hey there. Kurai grunted as Mina helped him get into a sitting position. Mina said that you wanted to talk. I'm actually here to say goodbye, Blake answered, stunning the couple. Once Yang is out of the hospital, I'm going to get on the next flight back to the States so I can transfer into the General Studies program at my school. What? Why? Kurai demanded, utterly bewildered at her declaration. You're not scared of fighting, are you? Once you got going in the forest, you handled yourself like a pro. I'm not afraid of battle, Blake admitted, her eyes downcast. But I am afraid of the people around me getting hurt because of the decisions that I've made. When Kurai made no reply to that, Mina looked back and forth between the two of them a few times before she asked, "Did I miss something? Belladonna, this isn't your fault, not even remotely. The League of Villains are the ones that... I'm the reason that Hikari is where he is right now." The other girl cut her off, her tone sad and remorseful. It took Mina a second to realize that she was crying. "When we first ran into Tokoyami and Shoji, I wanted to abandon them in order to get back to the camp. When he let me make the decision to run straight for the camp and to go find the villain that was attacking Todoroki and Bakugo, I chose to fight. Both of my choices nearly got him killed, and I don't see much of a future in being a hero that only endangers the lives of her peers. I'm quitting now before anyone else gets hurt because of me. I've always been best at letting other people down. Even my quirk is best suited for letting something else take the fall for me." "No." Both girls turned toward the bed to see Kurai looking at Blake with fire in his eyes, despite his pale face and weakened frame. "You don't get to quit, Belladonna. I won't let you do it." "You can't stop me," she said, though she seemed uncertain of herself. "I'm not giving up on being a hero after what happened to me, so you'd better not either," he grunted as he slowly moved his left leg to hang off the bed. When Mina went to stop him, he waved her back. After he moved his right foot to do the same, he growled out, "I am in so much pain that the narcotics are hardly doing anything. The doctors think that I'll have to deal with phantom pains for the rest of my life, in fact. I won't be able to use my quirk out of my primary fighting hand. I can't even sleep without seeing the faces of everyone that has tried to kill me in the last few months. But none of that is stopping me, and do you know why?" "Why?" "Because I have friends that won't let me quit," Kurai hissed as he slid off the bed, wobbling unsteadily until Mina moved to grab him up under her shoulders, helping him to stand up straight. "Because they know that I can be a good hero, one that won't let other people suffer like Midoriya has had to, or Xiaolong, or me. I'm not there yet, and I won't be for some time, but I am still going to get there. And if all of this doesn't stop me, then you really don't have an excuse to quit either." Blake looked like she wanted to say something, but he held up a hand to cut her off before adding, "I don't know a lot about you, Belladonna, but I know that you wouldn't be here, in Mr. Aizawa's class, of all places, if you didn't have the potential for greatness in you. And you owe it to all the people that you'll save someday to work your hardest to ensure that you train to make the right decisions from now on. And you can start." Grimacing as he took a couple of steps forward with his girlfriend's help, Kurai reached out his hand to Blake and concluded, "By choosing to stay at UA High, Your Hero Academia." When Blake didn't immediately take his hand, Mina grunted out, "Seriously, Belladonna, could you shake hands with him already? He's heavy." "I'm not that heavy. I've even managed to drop 8 pounds recently," he replied with a wry smile over his shoulder, which got Mina to roll her eyes at him. Looking back at Blake, Kurai wiggled his hand a little bit and said, "Come on, Belladonna. My arm's getting tired and I don't have a spare anymore, so I gotta take good care of it." "I'm gonna drop you," Mina threatened, which drew a tired chuckle out of him. Slowly, Blake reached out and gingerly shook his hand, careful of the IV still piercing his flesh. "I'll finish the semester at UA," she told them. "If I'm still not convinced that my life is good for this by then, I'm switching to general studies." Kurai and Mina glanced at one another, then nodded in unison. "Good enough," Mina grinned. "Hey, Belladonna?" "Yes?" "Can you help me put him back into bed? His legs are giving out." "Sorry," he said a little sheepishly as the American rushed to help her new classmates. "Recovery Girl's quirk pretty much wiped me out." Blake left shortly afterwards to go see Yang and her friends, leaving Kurai and Mina alone for the second time since he had woken up. Realizing that his family might be coming soon, she took the opportunity to ask him about something that had been bothering her for the last few hours. "Why are you putting on a show for the others?" She was sitting next to him, massaging his legs to stimulate the blood flow, as per the suggestion of the doctor. Kurai was surprised to discover that his girlfriend was an excellent masseuse, but her question distracted him from that particular detail for the moment. "I'm not entirely sure," he answered honestly. "I don't know if it's because I want them to think that I'm as tough as they've all been saying I am all year, or so that they don't even get more discouraged after what just happened to Bakugo, or some other reason entirely." Looking into her caramel-colored eyes, he added softly, "I just know that for some reason I can't put up appearances when it's just you and me. Or rather, I don't want to." "Why not?" "Because I trust you, and I want you to feel comfortable around me." "Oh yeah?" She grinned lightly as she switched over to his left leg. "So there's nothing you wouldn't tell me?" She meant it as a joke, but when Kurai didn't immediately respond and she saw the troubled look on his face, she frowned a little bit and asked, "Is there something you won't tell me?" Kurai's mind raced, knowing that he had balked, but he couldn't well tell her about All Might and his past, nor the truth behind Izuku's powers. On the other hand, he didn't want her to lose faith in him either, so he decided to say, "There are some secrets that aren't mine to share." "Really?" She asked, her smile back as she continued to work on his leg. "What, do you know some stuff about your dad's job that you're not technically supposed to know?" You could say that." He nodded with a small sigh of relief as he realized that she wasn't really too worried about the matter. His girlfriend was a tad on the nosy side, but even she could recognize that, especially in the line of hero work, there were just some things that couldn't be shared without the express permission of the one that had originally held their secrets. "Okay, well, aside from any super secret police stuff or any world-ending catastrophes that you've pinky promised to never speak of, is there anything else I should know about you?" He winced as she massaged a particularly tender spot on his calf, which she quickly apologized for. Turning red from what he was about to say, Kurai told her, "Just that I'm in love with a really great girl who I think is going to be an amazing hero." "Was that supposed to be a secret?" She giggled. "Because you already told me that." "Anything wrong with me saying it more than once?" "Not at all." She released his leg in favor of moving up the bed to bend over and kiss him on the mouth, enjoying the gentle contact that she had been missing since camp began. As she drew back for a breath of air, she murmured, "Thank you for being yourself around me. I wouldn't want you any other way." That night, their world would change forever. Kurai's mother and brother came in to see him, and it actually turned out to be a nice visit for the boy as he was beginning to feel a little better, thanks to Recovery Girl and the painkillers that he was being put on. Mina spent a lot of the time talking to Akurui, who was able to communicate via the computer that had been built into his wheelchair. He couldn't use his mouth to talk, but he could type out whatever he needed to say, as his hands were relatively unaffected thus far. From what Kurai could see, the two of them were getting along a lot better than they had been before the events of Eye Island, which brought him a measure of much-needed happiness. Since Akurui had finally been cleared to go home, he and the mother left a little early, so they could get him situated back at the house, though their mother did leave behind a bag with some fresh clothes for Kurai, should he want to finally change out of the hospital robe. Before they left, the younger brother joked that they should have put a plaque with their family's name on his hospital room, as Kurai was, quite by coincidence, scheduled to move there once he was gone. Since Kurai didn't need a constant supply of blood anymore, he was cleared to leave the ICU, though the nurses would still be checking on him regularly. His IV was also removed so that he could move about more freely and start taking his pain medication via pill instead of liquid drip. Since the rules about visitors were more relaxed in the new room, and he was feeling a little better, despite needing Mina's help to walk due to this sense of imbalance and weakened muscles, he let his classmates know that they were free to visit him as they pleased. This led to the majority of the class coming to see him for a little while before they all went their separate ways. The only one to remain behind was Midoriya, who asked Mina if he could talk to his friend in private. She was reluctant to leave his side, but he assured her that he would be okay for a few minutes without her. So she went to go grab some food for them from the cafeteria down below, promising to return with some KFC, an old favorite of Kurai's from when he was little. As soon as she was gone, Kurai sobered his expression and murmured, "Is this about All Might?" "No," Midoriya answered swiftly. "I know you can't help us, but I just wanted you to know. Todoroki, Kirishima, and I are going to try to rescue Kachan. If Yaoyorozu is on board to help us track him down, we'll make sure to finish what you started." His words didn't really surprise Kurai, though whether it was because he was just exhausted or he knew that his friend was determined to stick his nose where it didn't belong, he wasn't sure. "I'll assume that Ida tried to talk you out of it. Or does he not know? Most of our class knows, except for Hagakure and Jiro," Midoriya admitted. "They're still recovering from the after effects of the poison. But yeah, most of the others are against the plan." "You do know that you're breaking the law and I'm the son of the police commissioner, right?" Kurai reminded him gravely. "Even if we are All Might's heirs, we need to play by the rules. The teachers want us to stay out of it, but there's nothing in the law that keeps us from attempting a rescue as long as we don't use our quirks to harm anyone," Izuku pointed out. "I nearly rescued him, Hikari. He was right in front of me, but my arms were busted and I couldn't grab him before they were warped away. I let your sacrifice go to waste, and I just can't live with that." Don't do this on my account or because you feel guilty," Kurai finally said after a moment of awkward silence. "I did what I could and then some, all without succeeding in the mission to get him to safety, and no one is to blame for that failure but me. That said, if you have a chance to do the right thing, I shouldn't stop you from taking it, as long as it is the right thing to do." A hard light crept into Kurai's tired eyes. If you act out of line like Ida did in Hosu, I'll make sure that my father knows what you were up to, and then let the hammer of justice fall where it may, even if it's on my head for letting you go in the first place. Do we have an agreement? We do, Midoriya said as he reached out with his right hand to shake his friend's, only to realize his mistake a little too late. Hikari, I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. The wounded boy sighed, reaching out with his left hand to grasp his peers. Go get him, and make sure that you all come back safe. I will. Then he was gone, and Kurai was left completely alone for the first time since he had been maimed. He gingerly touched his injury without looking at it, wincing as the stitches responded angrily to the soft probe. If I didn't have this, would I be going with him? He had wondered. Before he could think about it too much, Mina had returned with the food, and he eagerly ate, having had little to sustain himself since he had woken up. It was more difficult than he had thought it would be, eating only with his left hand, especially when it came to the chicken. His grip was awkward at certain angles, and he couldn't seem to get all the meat off the bones like he had been able to when he had use of both arms. However, he refused to ask Mina for help, not wanting to mark himself as an invalid when he was more than possible to feed himself. Once they had finished their meal, Mina went to take a shower, while Kurai began to flip through the channels on the TV in his new room, eventually settling on a station that ran old anime from the days before Quirks. He was delighted to find that one of his favorites, Noragami, was having a marathon of the first season, and it was only on the second episode, so he hadn't missed much. Since it was on one of the more obscure channels, the dub was in English, but Kurai didn't mind too much since he was nearly fluent in the language. Mina came out just as the third episode began the opening sequence, a towel covering her frizzy hair, though it did nothing to conceal the irritated look on her face. Cocking his head at his girlfriend, Kurai asked, "Something wrong?" "I forgot to ask Sue to bring my shampoo and conditioner," she grumbled as she sat in a chair next to him, rubbing the towel on her scalp to try and get a little more moisture removed. "I had to use the crappy stuff they provide here." "I might need to go in for a wash," Kurai realized aloud. "I'll assume I didn't get cleaned while I was unconscious." "Nah, and the doctor said you're not allowed to soak your wound yet, remember?" she reminded him. "I can help you with a sponge bath if you want, but a shower is out of the question, Buster." He hesitated, wondering if she wasn't just trying to get a reaction out of him, but he also knew that his mom had brought him a pair of board shorts so that he could have assistance in getting clean without compromising his dignity. At least as much dignity as a teenager whose arm had been torn off could salvage. Sighing to himself as he shuffled toward his bag, he said, "I'd appreciate it. Just give me a minute to change into my shorts." In truth, Mina was tempted to tease him, but she knew that his ego was pretty fragile right now, and given how hard he was fighting with a zipper on his bag, she decided she'd be better off helping him instead of trying to rile him up. Moving back toward the bathroom, she said over her shoulder, "I'll go make sure that the water's still running warm. Come in after you've changed, Kay?" Mina, "Yeah?" She stopped just short of the door and turned back to see Kurai smiling at her gratefully. "You need me to get something?" "No, I just wanted to say thanks for everything that you're doing, and what you're not saying." He chuckled softly, knowing she would understand. Flashing him a bright smile of her own, she told him, "Yeah, don't get used to it. You better believe I'm gonna step it up when we get out of here with ways to make you look like a human tomato." Duly noted. After Kurai was clean of the residual filth that had stayed on his body since the training camp, plus some of the other dried blood that had collected on his arm and torso, he definitely felt a little more refreshed. Mina let him wash himself for the most part, simply standing next to him and lending aid whenever he specifically asked for it. She also had a small portable speaker with her now, so she had some hip-hop music going in the background for them, tapping her fingers or nodding her head to the beat of whatever tune happened to be playing at the time. Once they were headed back to the room, Kurai asked her, "Thinking up a new routine?" His girlfriend was an avid breakdancer, and her fighting style certainly showed it if one paid attention. "Not really," she replied cheerfully. "It just helps to have a good beat to relax to, you know?" "I relax best with a good book or tools in my hands." He grunted as she helped him to sit down on the bed before turning to bring his bag to him. In the background, the TV was still running a show, though Mina had muted it to make room for her music. "I didn't take you for a handyman." "Not as in home repairs, I mean my bike," he replied as she brought him a Dragon Ball shirt and sweatpants. "Thank you." "That makes more sense," she giggled, though her face fell a little bit as a thought occurred to her. "Are you going to be able to ride it anymore?" It depends on the grade of prosthetic that my parents are able to afford," Kurai shrugged. "If we can get a good one through our villain insurance, it should work pretty well. Enough that I can move it almost like my old one, so long as I don't do anything crazy with it." "You mean fighting like just about every hero is expected to?" She gazed at him with concern as his mouth went a little grim. "I'll adapt," he said firmly as he started tugging on his pants. "It's going to suck, and I hate it, but I have to learn to work with this. My only other option is giving up, and as I have been informed by someone that I care about very much, throwing in the towel isn't a real option. So I'll figure something out. Maybe Akururi will have an idea? She asked him hopefully, causing the boy to put his face in his hand. He's already on it, isn't he? That little troll told me that I screwed up his hard work. Now he has to clean up my mess again. He grumbled as he finally managed to lift the fabric up to his waistline. Other than that, he wouldn't tell me what he was planning. Is it safe for him to keep using his quirk like he is? No, but it's technically a heteromorphic type quirk, which means that it isn't physically possible for him to shut it off, Kurai reminded her. That's part of the problem with his tumor. It gets more aggressive the more his quirk is used, voluntarily or not. He then held up his shirt and asked, Can I get a hand with this? Before she could give him an answer, his phone started to buzz, alerting him to a call from Akururi. Speak of the devil? Mina said as she handed the phone to Kurai, who stumbled over the accept button a couple of times before being able to let the call go through. Hello? He asked, a little confused. Akururi, are you there? It's me. Both teenagers looked at the phone in surprise when the voice of K2SO, a droid from the old Rogue One Star Wars movie, came in over the speaker. Akururi, how are you doing this? His elder brother demanded. He recognized the voice because it had been Akururi's favorite character in the franchise. It was a few seconds before they received the reply. I'll explain at a better time. Right now, turn your TV to the news. Puzzled by the bizarre request, Kurai asked, which one and why? Take your pick, they're all focusing on the same thing. You'll see why once you do. With that, the line went dead, leaving the two teenagers utterly bewildered. He just keeps finding new ways to be annoying, even when he's half paralyzed. Mina muttered as she reached for the remote, turned the volume back on, and switched to one of the local news stations. The second after she did, the sound of the remote hitting the ground followed the student's jaws dropping. Kurai, is that Camino Ward? He asked hoarsely. I think so. The scene below is straight out of a nightmare, the reporter on the TV exclaimed as the helicopter footage showed wreckage of destruction untold since the days that All Might stepped onto the scene. Entire buildings had been obliterated throughout the sector, and more were in pieces. There was no telling how many people were already dead, and judging by how recently Akururi must have seen what was happening, things were just getting started. Half of Camino Ward was destroyed in an instant, the clearly rattled man continued. All Might is currently fighting the villain that appears to have caused the blast, but I just don't understand how one person could be that powerful. He's destroying the city and more than holding his own against the symbol of peace. As the camera zoomed in, the viewers could make out All Might's bolt crushing someone or something underneath his full body weight. One person did that? Mina practically shrieked. One guy? Kurai felt his blood turn to ice while his breath seemed to completely desert his lungs. One man. He thought, a horrible suspicion stealing into his mind. Someone powerful enough to cause this kind of destruction. Someone that All Might didn't just wreck with a single punch. Oh God, please don't let this be what I think it is. Dude, is All Might looking beat up? Mina's words snapped Kurai out of his panicked thoughts for a moment. Huh? Look at his face, it looks all mangled and he's bleeding. She pointed urgently at the screen where the camera had been able to zoom in even further, which showed something that made Kurai even more afraid. No, he whispered. Mina was only half right. While All Might was indeed bleeding from his mouth, it was doubtful that the villain had done it. That came out of his lungs, he realized, having seen it happen to the weakened hero a couple of times since learning his secret. And his face isn't busted. He's changing back into his normal form. What do you mean, no? He's clearly... Kurai? Mina was now looking at him, great concern written on her brow. Kurai, you're really pale. Are you bleeding again? No, not bleeding, he said hoarsely as he began to shake his head. Inwardly, he added, if he fights this guy any longer, his secret will be out, and we can't lose All Might yet. Izuku and I aren't ready. Oh man, buddy, I hope you weren't anywhere near that crap fest. The thought that his friends might have been caught up in the battle between these two titans was almost enough to induce a panic attack in the boy, on top of everything else that had happened to him. On the TV, All Might was suddenly thrown back by some kind of an air blast that sent him nearly flying into the news helicopter, only being stopped by a small white and yellow blur that set him down safely on the ground, a few yards away from the villain. Now that the hero wasn't crushing the man anymore, Kurai was able to get a good look at him, and all doubt left his mind as to his identity. That's him, he thought, feeling vertigo seize him in the clutches of horror as the faceless villain in his nightmares was finally given form. He wore a suit that would have made him appear gentlemanly, if not for the broken black skull mask that shrouded part of his own mangled face, screaming death and catastrophe to all that saw it. He looked nothing like Kurai thought he would, in the brief moments when he considered what All Might's greatest enemy would appear to be, but he was infinitely more terrifying. That must be him. All for one. This was worse than any scenario he could have envisioned. If All Might continued to fight, the secret of his wounded status would be revealed to the world. On the other hand, if he didn't fight All for One now and defeat him, it would certainly fall to the heroes Deku and Kai to face him someday. And after seeing what the man was capable of, Kurai severely doubted in their ability to do that. Kurai, do you know who that villain is? Mina asked him, shaking him by the left shoulder. You sound more scared of that guy than the reporter does, and you look like you've seen a ghost. More like a demon. He wheezed, his throat drier than a desert. He couldn't stop himself. He knew that he shouldn't say anything about All Might's past to anyone without the man's permission, but it was all just becoming too much for him to handle. He felt like he needed someone outside of all the madness to talk to, someone that could have a more grounded perspective on the insanity that he was being subjected to. That guy's... An aerokinetic explosion suddenly ripped through Kamino at the behest of All for One, aiming for a building where many heroes and civilians could be seen trying to escape this battle of the gods occurring not a few hundred meters from where they lived. At first, amid the wind and dust, it appeared as though there would be several hundred more casualties to add to what was already going to be a horrible night in history, but that quickly changed. Did All Might block that? Mina asked, her voice filled with awe as the camera showed that the buildings had not been damaged any further, despite the ferocious blast. That's amazing! What the... Shit! Kurai swore as he felt himself fall back onto the incline of his bed. The screen showed a weakened All Might, his hero costume hanging loosely off of his bony arms and legs, while his eyes had sunken in to accompany his hollowed cheekbones. Fresh blood covered his fingers, forehead, and mouth. Kurai and Izuku's worst fear had come to pass. The symbol of peace had been exposed as a walking cadaver. He looked so frail that if someone tapped him, his ankles would roll over in his oversized boots. Is everyone seeing this? The reporter asked off-screen, sounding just as bewildered as all of his viewers. All Might has been shrunk somehow? Mina looked at the TV with wide eyes, then back at Kurai, back to the screen, then back to him again. You don't look surprised by this, she said softly. All Might turns into a skeleton, and that's your reaction? It's almost like... Remember how some secrets aren't mine to tell? He asked tightly before she could finish. Pointing a trembling finger at the TV, he added, That's one of them. When Mina said nothing for a moment and the two superhumans appeared to be at something of a standoff, he went on to say, All Might. This guy almost killed him a few years back, and he thought that he'd done him in. But this villain, All for One, he survived, and All Might knew that if they ever fought again, the world could lose its symbol of peace. So, he asked me and Midoriya to train under him, to become the All Might of the next generation. He asked us to train so that we could fix his mistake, to someday defeat All for One. Mina's eyes went wider than dinner plates as she whispered, And he asked you guys... He wanted you to fight that? She pointed to the screen again, which showed All for One saying something undetectable to All Might. And you said yes? Mina, please keep your voice down. Kurai hissed as he placed a finger over his lips. I shouldn't even be telling you this, but I feel like I'm losing my mind with everything that I've had to deal with. I told him that I would take up the fight in his name only because me and Midoriya have the kind of power that could defeat this guy. Someday. At least, that's what he told us. Do you think that he was lying? She asked as she sat down on the bed next to him, looking thoroughly rattled. Both of them kept their eyes glued to the screen, morbidly interested to see which of the two men would make the next move. No, he admitted hollowly. But after seeing this, seeing what he's done to All Might and the city, I don't know how anyone could possibly defeat that thing. As he spoke, he felt terror, pain, and anger. Yes, anger at the villains, but also at All Might, who had placed such a tremendous burden on his shoulders by being careless with his power. Mina saw these different emotions warring across her boyfriend's face, and her mind raced to find the words to say. Clearly, she still wasn't getting the full picture, but the bombshells that he had just dropped were clear indicators of the fact that he had been dealing with a lot more than he had let on, which were more than enough on their own. He's hurting, but he still needs to believe in the guy that saw enough potential in him to make his successor. She thought as he tightened his remaining fist, unable to tell if he was glaring at All Might or All for One. Her jaw firmed up as the words finally came, and she murmured, Whatever else has happened to All Might, or whatever he asked you and Midoriya to do, he's still the greatest hero that the world has. Even if he looks like a skeleton, I believe that he can do this because he's always pulled through before. He's still there, still standing. Before Kurai could say anything to the contrary, the camera showed the man settling into a limping stance, his right arm swelling back up to the muscular size that it was whenever he used his quirk. All for One floated up a few meters into the air, red electricity crackling along his own expanding arm. Looking at Kurai directly for a moment, Mina nudged his shoulder gently and whispered, "He's still fighting, Kurai. He's fighting for the chance that you won't have to." With those words, the boy felt his anger at the hero melt away and fall from his heart. She's right, he realized, feeling the shame replace the anger. He could have just fled under the dust cloud and no one would have been the wiser. He could have left the other pros to do the fighting so that he could protect his public image, but he's still there even though he's half dead by now. He's been hurt so much more than I have, and he's never once complained about it. He's out there doing his duty while I'm in here griping and worrying about stuff that might not even happen. There was a sudden rush of fire that announced the arrival of Endeavor, along with Edgeshot and a few other pro heroes, but the camera obviously wasn't going to tear away from the main confrontation. From what they could tell, a few of the highest ranked heroes were coming to assist All Might in his battle, while the others moved to assist evacuation efforts. The two teenagers felt their stomachs drop as All for One effortlessly beat back attacks from Edgeshot and Endeavor, all while trying to kill the heroes that were rescuing innocent civilians. In spite of their best attempts to pin down the ancient menace, he eventually got fed up with their interference, clearing the area of all but himself and All Might with another air shot that was powerful enough to throw off the helicopters in the sky, which in turn obstructed the viewer's line of sight into what was happening. What happened next defied belief, even for a world full of heroes and villains. All for One's right arm quadrupled in size and length, iron spears, metal nuts, and bolts bursting through the skin, all serving to turn the villain to a misshapen hunchback, not unlike his mortal enemy, who waited for the oncoming storm with the look of a predator in his darkened blue eyes. Seeing it all, Kurai questioned how his teacher could bear to stand against such overwhelming, implacable evil. "Here we go," Mina whispered, her hands finding his and gripping it tightly. The pair exchanged 4 blows in total. The first was a collision of their engorged fists that sent All Might reeling, and nearly stopping Kurai's heart when he thought that the man had fallen for a second. Then the blonde hero steeled himself, just dodging the horrendous limb in time to put enough power into his left arm so that he struck All for One a solid blow across his face, destroying his demonic mask and sending shockwaves across the destroyed sector. However, this left his right arm completely broken, just like Izuku's arms used to wind up whenever he used One for All. Even as he recoiled in pain, his left arm deflated, leaving him all but helpless before his hated foe. Seeing this, All for One used his air power to hurl himself at All Might, monster fist first. When he somehow missed, he hesitated, sensing that he had made some kind of crucial mistake. It was at this time that the crowd could finally hear their number one hero's voice rising above the chaos and noise. "I didn't put my back into it that time!" All Might drew back his mangled arm, dripping with blood, and he seemed to clench something. Without needing to be told, Kurai knew that this was it. If All Might failed in this next attack, All for One would return in force, and it would be up to him and Izuku to take up the fight against this demon. Then, miracle of miracles, All Might's right arm swelled back up to fighting size, completely healed. All for One stumbled in his gait, clearly not having predicted this particular development. The symbol of peace charged forward with a mighty war cry, fresh blood spilling from his mouth as he dealt the enigma of destruction a terrible blow to the face, crushing him into the ground, a monstrous tornado shooting up from the point of impact. "United States of Smash!" All Might's ultimate move annihilated the remnants of Kamino, tearing out buildings by their roots and flinging them skyward. The helicopter filming the battle was nearly hit on 4 separate occasions before the winds began to die down and the crew could take stock of what the final result of the battle was. When the lens managed to focus back on the destroyed ground, All Might was hunched over, unmoving. But All for One wasn't getting up either. The villain was lying on the ground, out cold or dead, they weren't sure. Kurai could not breathe. He could not take in a breath until he knew for sure what had just happened. Even the sounds of the hospital around them seemed to die away as they awaited the verdict. The instilled silence remained absolute across the nation until All Might weakly raised his left hand above his head and resumed his hero form in all its glory. He was battered, bloodied, and his normally immaculate hair was a mess, but he was standing tall. He did it! The reporter cheered, sounding as though he were trying not to cry from relief and joy combined. All Might wins! The villain's down! He's not moving! All Might stands victorious! He saved us all again! Kurai let out a huge gasp of relief as he realized that the nightmare was over. Not just for him, but for the world over. All for One would never threaten them again. All Might had fulfilled the generations-long destiny of the people that used One for All, and taken down the mighty villain that ruled from the shadows. Mina was laughing and crying at the same time as she hugged him tightly and he hugged her back, feeling that a huge weight had finally come off of his shoulders. Throughout the hospital, patients and staff alike were cheering loudly, chanting the name of their hero, a sound that could be heard as an echo coming from the packed streets down below. Thank you, All Might. In the wee hours of the morning, Police Commissioner Hogosho was out with his men, having decided that if he could demand assistance from off-duty officers, he could be out there with them, doing the hard work too. He had been coordinating with Uabami, the serpent heroine, to find and evacuate victims in the remnants since the battle between All Might and All for One had concluded, and decided that he could afford to take a moment to call his wife and let her know that he was alright. Alright, tell Ida that we're very grateful, he said with a large smile on his aged face. Being on the force for more than 3 decades had really started to take its toll on his physical appearance, especially with situations like this one. I'll give Kurai the good news on my way home. Is Miss Ashido still there with him? Yes, she's been very good to him. You scared her, didn't you? Guilty as charged, officer. That's my lady. He laughed as he noticed one of the heroes waving him over, indicating that they needed assistance with getting someone out of the buildings. I need to go. I love you. As he started toward the ruin, the Cape Man nodded and went inside. Love you too. I'll tell Akurui that you called. With that, the line went dead and he put the device in his pocket. Letting out a sigh, he muttered under his breath, I'm going to need something stronger than coffee to get me through this hellhole of a night. He jogged over to the building that he had seen the hero enter, clicking on his flashlight as he made his way into what might have been a receptionist's area. He had to crawl to fit in through the opening, but there was plenty of space once he was inside. He was only half surprised when something shot out from inside the darker part of the rubble and knocked the device out of his hand while simultaneously destroying the torch, leaving him in the dim light of the falling moon. Color me impressed, he said flatly, remaining exactly where he was. You set this up pretty quickly, given your losses. You really want those to be your last words? A deep, echoing voice rumbled ominously. No, I actually have a few for your boss. Hogasha glared into the yawning darkness that seemed to be coming to life as he snarled. Tell him that I only regret not doing it sooner. All for One does not take kindly to betrayals, the dark voice replied, even as the meager light from outside began to fade. For tonight's events, your own life is forfeit, though you may take comfort in knowing that your family's lives are being spared. That will be your league's undoing. Hogasha laughed despite the creeping shadows. My sons will not be broken. I see that now. Pray to the God that you believe in before they come for you, because when they do, you're going to wish your master had never reached out to me with his offer. I said that their lives are being spared, the shadow hissed. Only time will tell what Shigaraki will inflict on them when he finally realizes his destiny and assumes the master's throne. Hogasha laughed, refusing to be intimidated. They'll take his hell and they'll return it with interest. Nothing you say can convince me otherwise. Then die with wasted breath, the shadow rumbled. However, even he was impressed when the police commissioner expired without a scream, a stubborn smile fixed on his corpse, as if it were one last act of defiance to All for One. Kurai yawned as he woke up, jostling Mina awake as he stretched his arm over his head, though she quickly nestled back into his chest, determined to stay asleep for as long as she could. Smiling softly, Kurai reached for the remote and clicked on the TV, after reading a couple of notifications on his phone, including a text from his mother, keeping the volume low as he surveyed the rescue efforts of the heroes and police officers. Wonder how many of them are out there, he wondered groggily, his right arm aching in protest of his missed pain medication from the previous evening. He'd been so caught up in what was happening with the fight that he had forgotten to ask for it, and the hospital had been flooded with new patients, which had led to the staff forgetting to bring it. I'm standing in the remnants of Camino Ward, where heroes and police are working tirelessly, a female reporter stated, as the sun began to rise behind her, illuminating the horrific battlefield. Rescue efforts began during All Might's fight, but the scope of the damage is nothing less than staggering. Authorities are estimating huge casualties. The villain who caused this is being led into police custody. Oh, he's over there right now. Sure enough, All for One was being forced into a containment unit with as many power suppressors covering his body as there could be without suffocating him. Endeavor will oversee his prison transfer while All Might and the other heroes remain on high alert. The reporter suddenly stopped talking as All Might, in his weakened form, raised a puny limb in order to point a single finger at the screen. Now, he wheezed. Now, it's your turn. Finished, he let his arm hang loosely at his side as he remained in place, a hollow fragment of the man that he had once been. Kurai felt the weight that had lifted from him begin to settle back in, even as Mina raised her head and looked up at him with worry. Sweetie, she asked him, what's wrong? You're all pale again and your heart's going nuts. All Might, he whispered as tears threatened to leak out of his eyes. He's done. That was it. Mina jerked her head back, suddenly looking much more awake. You're saying... He was talking to Izuku and me. He said, his tongue feeling numb from the weight of those words. He's saying that it's up to Deku and Kai to take up the standard. It's... our turn. Mina looked like she wanted to say something, but she was stopped by a knock at the door. Police, they heard, so she quickly scrambled out of the bed to help him up. Can we come in, Hikari? Give me a second, Kurai grunted as he swung his feet out of the bed and into his slippers. Sorry, I just woke up. What's going on? Mina murmured, looking as though she was still reeling from All Might's message to her boyfriend. Probably Dad. He has to be escorted by officers during his uniform hours. He answered as he wiped at his eyes before they began to walk toward the door. My guess is that he was escorting some civilians to the hospital and figured that he'd stop in for a minute. Mom sent a text that he was going to stop by. Oh, if it's him, I should probably clean up a little bit. The pink girl grinned. Wouldn't want him to think that we were up to anything, right? Next time, just say that you have to use the bathroom, okay? I'm good to get to the door. Thank you, they're the best! She exclaimed before she bolted toward the bathroom and slammed the door shut. Hikari? One of the officers called in. You okay in there? Yeah, sorry, I'm almost there. He forced himself to chuckle as he reached the door handle. Dad's probably had a rough night. Doesn't need to see me freaking out because I'm going to be the next symbol of peace alongside Izuku. Composing himself, he opened the door and said, Good morning, officer. His words died in his throat as he saw that both men in front of his door had their hats off and wore sorrowful expressions.
So, how are we feeling?
Alright, let's start from the beginning.
Despite the laughter and smile on my face, I do not feel great about myself for writing that.
That was an ouch.
That hurt me.
So, we open. Ashido is remembering
Very important conversation with her mother, which was...
It's kind of funny.
I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah. It's a very different mom thing than I would have done. I would have just been like, yeah, he's a dummy, so he'll probably mess it up, but you better
way to have faith in your son.
I think that's more because that's the kind of thing your mom says, so...
Okay. I don't know. I don't know.
She's very intense, but I love it because I get it. That's how I feel about my son. So it's like there was a very Joseph overkill conversation.
Was that trademark me? Yeah.
That was trademark Joseph.
Okay. Like, yeah.
The way you get intense, that's the kind of intense this mom is right here.
That's fair.
I could totally see your brothers calling you and like teasing you mercilessly about that conversation, but I love it, so I don't care.
That's a good thing they don't read my stuff.
Yeah. That's alright. So
I thought it was an important conversation to have.
Fun.
Like,
it
was fun, but it was like there was also some weight to it. I feel.
Yeah, because she's realizing like, okay, I'm actually making this commitment, and then there's the steel in her at the end of the conversation where she really, she has this moment where she can resolve to say, no, yeah, I mean this.
I mean this.
And we have some wisdom coming from the mom. She's like, well, make sure that you're not just infatuated.
Yeah.
But that you actually intend to work to make this relationship work. Yeah. Because it's work. Yeah. And that's how life
is. It's not just, an actual relationship's not just fun
Mm-hmm.
good times and going on dates and stuff.
That's why many teenage relationships don't work, because it's infatuation. Yep. It's not, like, love is hard. It's an active commitment. It's a fight every day.
Yep. Love is a commitment, not a feeling.
Yeah. So, but it's cool because Mina kind of, it's not that she didn't realize that before, but it's that she has this moment where she can really process and make that decision. Yeah. Because there's sometimes when you're kind of going through the motions of what you're feeling and you haven't actually like made that internal commitment, and so it seems like
taking time to like
articulate
and like and like process it, like consciously process it, not just have it as something going on in your subconscious.
So that's why this conversation is very important, because we know where she's at now.
Yeah.
She's not gonna, Yeah.
And I feel like this is probably one of the first stories where like we're really getting in the head of the heroine. Like I've done that a little bit with some of my other stories, but I feel like I'm going more into it with this one.
Mm-hmm. Which I appreciate, because Kurai is like, he was raised with Ida, so he's kind of hard to understand sometimes. So where he's lacking there, it's nice because Mina's more relatable in some ways too.
Okay.
So I think that gives us that balance when we have this kind of, he's not a stick in the mud, but it can be. He really was at the beginning of the story. She's
loosening him up.
She's loosening him up quite a bit, but he can still be a little like hard to understand, I think, as a character. And so she gives us that kind of relief of having someone we can relate to through this, processing the story with us.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but cool.
Yeah. All right. So we have that conversation.
Yep. Let's see. Next, so following morning, stuff like this building up, there's going to be PTSD. Like, at this point, there's just no way that he wouldn't have some form of it. Like,
now we have a quirk. PTSD.
So like I was about to get to that, but it's like, so far he's been like having nightmares and stuff, which, understandable, but like, you could argue the case that like that's post-traumatic stress disorder or just like, just bad memories. But this is like something physical that's happening. And like I said, at this point, I don't think...
That is a symptom of severe PTSD,
though. Yeah. At this point...
Slight dissociation, especially, and that happens to most people when they're having nightmares to begin with. And then with the added issue, mental illness happening, that's not going to be good.
Yeah. Like, my point was that at this point in time, there's just no way that he wouldn't start manifesting more extreme symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, because the dude's been through hell at this point.
So, ouch, poor Mina.
Yeah, that wasn't great.
And I feel like he didn't say a lot, but I feel like he's probably like extra angry at himself for injuring her in any way, especially after all they've been through.
Yeah.
So he's
he's got that weighing on him, but he's just so tired and like feels so sick that he's like half the stuff that is going through his head at this point he can't even put into words. It's too much. Like, you can't function normally with all this stuff happening.
It was an accident. It wasn't like an abusive behavior.
Yeah.
But even so, it's like, it's a lot. He's going to have to process that later when he has the mental, emotional energy to do so, and it's not going to be easy.
No.
And so we have that. He breaks open his stitches. So she needs to step out while he gets his stitches redone.
Yeah.
And she runs into Weiss.
Yep. Which, if you guys remember at this point, I don't know if you do or not, but Kurai kind of pissed her off the first time they met. Because he was
it's easy to do.
Well, yeah, but it was like, hey, wait a minute, isn't her dad's company like under ethics code violation inspections or something like that? And she's like,
yeah, it's like, brah, you don't say that.
Again, he was raised with Ida as a best friend.
Yeah, he has a hard time. Even though, for someone who's so shy, he doesn't have much of a filter. Okay, he's become much less shy at this point.
A, he's less shy. B, look at his parents. Like, they're not afraid to call anybody on their crap.
Yeah, they really have no filters. They have some strong opinions. Reminds me of somebody. Okay, moving on. But they actually have a really good interaction.
Yeah,
Weiss
they
is
did.
Really sweet about it in a Weiss.
In a very Weiss way, yeah.
And I think Mina gets that.
Yeah.
At this point, she's like, okay,
it's like she's trying.
Yeah, she's trying.
Yeah. And I kind of thought that it was like, this is one of those things where I easily could have skipped over it. Like, it wasn't even necessary.
And I forgot about the texts that Mina got.
Oh, yeah, from her brother.
Before he woke up.
Yeah, this is actually the first time we see her interacting with her brother, and like, even if it's for a very brief time, it's kind of like a little bit of a look into like what her interpersonal relationships are outside of school and outside of Kurai. Because like, her relationship with her brothers isn't the best one, but at least Like,
Yeah.
he's checking on her.
It kind of reminded me. I know probably no one has seen the Netflix DC Superhero Girls, but I watch it with my kids. And there's this one point where, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Supergirl's name.
Karen?
She
Kara Danvers, sorry.
Kara.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, yeah, not Karen. Karen's the Bumblebee girl.
That's right.
Kara, I think somehow everyone thinks she's dead, and she gets a text from
That's
she's
right.
like all beat up, and she goes back into their hideout, and her phone goes off, and she opens it, and it's Superman.
From Superman, it's like,
and she's
you dead?
You did? And she says, nope. He says,
thumbs up.
Thumbs up. And it's a very brother thing to do, right? But I love it. You did. And so that's what that reminded me of, except it was a lot nicer than that.
Yeah.
But that's like something my brothers would text me, so I was kind of laughing when you did that, because, well, my brothers are more like Superman in that in that
situation.
rendition.
Okay, yeah.
But I thought for not having a close relationship, that was a pretty cool thing of her brother to do. So that's nice. That's showing.
She did mention there's quite an age gap between. There's like a 10-year age gap between them.
Yeah,
I think.
but that's neat.
Yeah.
And then sorry, gosh. So yes, and then we also have Blake.
Yes, that was So. I kind of felt that at some point in the story, there was going to have to be the whole her trying to run away from her responsibilities thing. But I wanted to handle...
That's her shtick. We all established this.
It's been well established in the series. I can't just erase that part of her, though. That's part of who she is.
It needs to be dealt with.
But it needed to be dealt with, and I felt like this would be the time to do so. I don't know. Do you think I could have handled that differently?
No, it's fine. And I think, it was so funny because that's a very, the way that Mina responded was like, who gave you this number? That's something you would do for me. I'm just like, oh, hey.
I don't know. I'm like, if someone texts me out of nowhere and it's like, they know who I am, I'm like, hey, who is this?
Well, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so Blake is nervous. She wants to come see him. She's nervous. She doesn't think he wants to see her. And then Kurai's like, what? Yeah, sure.
It's like, oh yeah, we fought. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, he's just like, I feel like
he's
death.
He's
hit
his capacity for stuff that he cares about. He's just like, look at me, look at all the craps that I don't give.
He is trying to stay alive and conscious with all of the pain he is in. So he's just like, oh, okay, yeah, she can come in, whatever. I don't care. I'm drugged up. He's not that drugged. It's kind of wearing off at this point. But I mean, he has to be functional at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, we have.
Hope that won't cause any problems down the line.
So we have we have the conversation with Weiss. She goes back in, and then we have some visits.
That's when Blake comes in. They talk her out of it, and that's kind of when we see Kurai get a little bit more fired up. He's like, "No, you don't get to quit."
Yeah, he's like after what I just went through.
He's like,
are you gonna walk out?
It's like you get. He's like, you get to walk out when I'm doing this, and I'm still in it. No, you do not. Get back over here.
It's like, yeah. So
he kind of forces her to get some perspective,
which is good, and it's something that she needs, and so we're able to nip that one in the bud right away.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of visits a little bit. You good over there, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you at? Sorry, I'm trying to, tremors are. I'm
okay.
trying to keep my hand busy.
Gotcha. So distracted. Sorry. Then we have
the conversation with him and Deku.
Deku pulls him aside and says, "Hey, we're gonna break the rules and go after Bakugo."
And I think Kurai does care. Kurai does care about this one.
Oh yeah, he does, but he's in
no position. He's in no position to do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's been so focused on trying to
maintain his sanity.
Yeah, to put one foot in front of the other and just navigate his day that it hasn't even occurred to him to jump back into action because he's just not in a place where he can do that. So
there was a gnat or something on you.
We're just all over the place today. Sorry. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm here.
But I liked how after their conversation, Kurai was almost wondering man, if I wasn't in these shoes, would I go with them?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good question to pose, whether he would go with them or not.
Well, yeah, because he's been. I mean,
he's been involved. He's been a stickler for the rules.
He's a stickler for the rules, but he's also been involved in some pretty major events so far. And Gang Orca kind of showed him it's okay to bend the rules every once in a while because
strictly speaking, Gang Orca probably shouldn't have taken him on the raid, but because he knew that he could handle it, he was like he decided that it was worth the risk to take him along. So and Gang Orca's his favorite hero, so like he's gonna follow his example.
Yeah.
So I think at this point he's like not above bending the rules, and like Deku pointed out, he's like I'm not. He's
part of him.
Yeah. But Deku made the point is like we're not breaking any laws as long as we don't use our quirks to hurt anybody. So if they're not breaking the law, then Kurai is just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Which, I mean, it's kind of hard to, go up against some villains without that, but, whatever.
I mean, hey, they actually, in the original, they pull it off. They don't use their quirks to hurt anybody.
You're right. So, we get back to the hospital room. He's kind of having to navigate his new disability.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he's like, it's like, I feel like it mostly came up like in little things here and there where it's like, he was trying to answer his phone and it's kind of awkward with his left hand. He's trying to eat. So he can't get all the food that he wants with his left hand. He's trying to wash himself and can't quite get it. Getting himself dressed, getting his bag out, like he's having a hard time with all
and
this.
So it's hard for Mina too, watching him struggle, because normally they have this kind of relationship where they can poke fun at each other.
But she pokes fun at him and he just kind of takes it.
But she knows he's kind of in a fragile state right now, and she shouldn't do that. So it's like the kind of person who makes a joke out of that's how I am. I like to make jokes about everything, and when it's not a situation where I can do that, I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, like
what's happening right now?
Yeah, we even and we still we kind of see her touching the waters a little bit. Like when he's hurt himself, she's kind of flirting with him, and he's just like, okay, this is not working. He's not mean about it, but he's like, okay, this is not the time right now.
No. Poor thing.
Yeah. And then there was that conversation they had. That's what we were missing, where she asked him, she's like, why are you putting on a brave front for everybody else but me? Mm-hmm. And they kind of are able to have that conversation where he's like, I just want to be myself around you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't want to put up a front. Mm-hmm. Which is something that's really important for a working.
Excuse me.
That's something that's very important for a working relationship.
Mm-hmm. And we are interrupted with a call from Kurai.
That's kind of a segue back into. No,
that's why they turned on the TV.
That is why they turned on the TV, but this is a conversation. I kind of got the timeline screwed up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, back after Kurai's kind of trying to navigate his day with just having a left hand, and I actually went a couple hours where I put my right arm in my shirt, and I tried to try to navigate stuff with just my left hand to kind of try and get a feeling for how that would be. Obviously it's not the same thing, but just trying to do everything with left hand, it made me notice little things like that instead of just skimming over. It's he was hard having only one hand now.
Okay.
So I think that carried over all right. I wouldn't have thought about the phone thing if I didn't realize oh wait, it's kind of awkward using my left hand to try and navigate the buttons and stuff.
Gotcha. Oh, that's smart. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, and eating with just the left hand, that was a pain in the butt. I remember when I was in hospital from diabetes, I had an IV in each arm. So and I was like this, so I was like this the whole time, I could hardly bend my arms. That made eating so freaking awkward, and I was so hungry.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
They kept having to, I just kept powering through it, and I would bend the IV, and they would have to keep fixing it because I was just trying to get food in my mouth. And I you can't feed yourself like this.
Oh my gosh.
The nurse was like, I'll feed you. I'm like, I'm not being hand fed by somebody. I'm feeding myself.
Oh my gosh, you'd think they could put it on the top of your hand or something. Anyway, okay.
Well, the veins in my hands were collapsing because I was yeah. So they had to stick I don't have very good veins to begin with. They had to stick it up here because up here it wasn't gonna work.
So some fat ones, but you were so dehydrated.
I was so dehydrated at that point that it's normally they're actually not this popped up. Normally they're pretty flat. I don't know what's happening right now.
Maybe your tremors are...
Maybe my tremors are making it... But
sorry, conversation for later.
Just, yeah, and I remember, I remember they took, I had to have 2 IVs for a couple of days, and they took the left one out once I was, sufficiently hydrated. And then it was a little easier for me to do stuff, but I don't know, that's just I kind of drew on those experiences to you don't think about it. It's how would my life change if I only had one arm?
but it's like he's got to deal with that.
Yeah,
now.
that reminds me of some activities I've had to do, like in teacher professional development, where we have to try to relate to. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there's one where we're learning how to teach people who are learning English. Mm-hmm. And so an activity we did is you have to be able to tell somebody something mm-hmm. and keep a story going without using the letter E.
Oh no. So
you have to like come up with sentences and ask people questions and have conversations without the letter E.
I feel like that inspired. This is kind of another segue. We'll get right back to the story after this. But there's a How I Met Your Mother episode where they challenge Barney.
Oh yeah, I remember.
He has to try and pick up a girl without using the letter E, and it takes him like 3 hours to do it.
But it's like, that's a really good. I feel like as a writer, that's a really good way of trying to, It's
relate
an
to the struggles,
to get yourself to in the mind of somebody else, trying to understand where they're at.
Yeah.
So cool.
So let's see. So following that, we get the big fight between All For One and mm-hmm. All Might, which that's still one of my favorite mm-hmm. just anime fights in general. Mm-hmm. Those episodes are so well done, man. The music, the animation, just the story alone it's amazing. And I knew that this was one of the things where I didn't want to touch it, kind of a thing. Like Kurai's watching it and he has his own input on it, but the fight itself, I was just like, there's literally nothing I can add to that.
It's so beautifully written.
Yeah.
So right now, instead,
we're having Kurai's perspective on it.
We're going through this emotional roller coaster that Kurai is having.
He finally he sees All For One and what he can do.
This is what we're up against.
He's like, this is what I'm supposed to go up against.
And this is the responsibility I and Deku have been given. And that's terrifying, especially when you're sitting in a hospital bed learning how to function with one arm, and all of a sudden you realize this is
what you're going up against.
And he's just mortified because he can tell All Might's not doing well.
Yeah, I feel like I should point out one thing to Kurai's character is that at no point does he be like, well, I'm not doing this.
No.
He gets pissed about it. He's not happy about it, but he knows that it has to be him. Mm-hmm. It has to be him and Deku.
Yeah.
If All Might can't do it here, then that's it. It's up to them. Mm-hmm. Which, All Might wins. All Might defeats All For One. Kurai has this moment where he's angry at All Might because of this pressure that he's placed on him, on top of everything else that he's had to deal with.
It's not necessarily how do you say?
Well, it's not All Might's fault. All the other stuff that's happened to him.
Justified anger. It's just it's a normal reaction. Human reaction to something that's so unexpected.
Yeah.
Because All Might's making the choices that he thinks he needs to make, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's not to bash on All Might.
No, not at all.
But I think it's pretty normal when you're hit with that kind of shock to feel some kind of anger, because a lot of times they talk about fight-flight reactions. Yeah. The majority of the reason people have road rage is because they're usually scared, and one of the first reactions that we have as humans to fear is
to get
anger.
Angry about it.
And so before we can process that fear, many of us get angry first. And because it's like a protection thing. And so it makes sense that he'd have that reaction where he's like, oh my gosh.
It's again, I don't think this would have, obviously it would have frightened him, but it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have caused, him to almost snap as much as if he would hadn't had all this stuff. His brother is now permanent.
There's a lot.
His brother, his arm, the whole thing, him having to keep All Might's secret,
he's already trying not.
He's hit his breaking point.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden everything starts spilling out, and he starts telling Mina, not everything.
He knows, even as he is, he knows he's okay, I can only say so much, but he's got to say something,
or else he's gonna
blow up.
Yeah, so he's able to share with Mina a little bit of the struggle that has been, he's been
which
facing.
Helps her in turn to realize, oh my goodness, he's going through even more than I thought he was. It's and she's able to at least understand a little bit more of like what's going on with this. Like
why
he's got all these emotions going on in his face.
Why he's behaving the way he's behaving.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah, because we never, you see those pictures of like somebody's life and how much you know about it. She's getting a little bit more of a window into what's been going on all this time, and causing him to behave the way he's been behaving, toward others and just in general.
Toward himself.
Yeah. We have the fight.
All Might wins. And then...
Cutscene.
And what's that?
Cutscene
to probably one of my best plot twists of all time. And I have been planning this from the beginning. I know. I remember I told you, like, I think you like jaw dropped it. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't do that. It was like, you can't do that or watch me.
Yeah, this one surprised me for sure. That his dad, this guy who's very well respected, who he's looked up to his whole life, he has some connection.
He has a connection. He says he made a deal with All for One.
Yeah. So we don't know what this deal is yet.
But we can guess that he reneged on it in some manner because All for One sent somebody to kill him.
Yeah. So all we know is, something changed.
Yep.
And something pissed him off enough that he was going to go back on his deal, and that caused him to lose his life.
Yep. There's no near death about this one. Officer Hogasha is dead.
That was a surprise for me, for sure.
Yeah. Just when you guys thought I couldn't kick Kurai any further while he was down.
Isn't he? So yeah.
Like honestly, I was like, oh man, like I had the idea, and I was like kind of trying to figure out where to put it, and I'm like, it worked the best to put it here, but I was like, oh man, is he gonna be able to take this, or is he gonna break at this? And I'm like, well, of course he's gonna. And then I realized of course he's gonna break. Of course he can't handle this on his own, but
he's got people alongside him.
He has people alongside him, and this is gonna be a lesson in him continuing to lean on them. If he's going to move forward from this. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't wait to, y'all have been freaking out about the whole arm thing and whether or not he's going to I can't wait to see what you guys say about that.
He loves torturing you. I'm sorry. So we cut back.
Like I said, I didn't feel good about this one. I was like, oh man, he's such a good character. Why do I have to do this?
So we cut back to All Might saying
it's your turn. This time, it's like Deku's reaction. If you want that, go look at the anime. Mm-hmm. Like that's unchanged.
It's the same.
It's the same
well
for him.
Written. Love it.
Yep. But again, we have things from Kurai's point of view, his interpretation. And it's like that sense of relief that he had. It's like he's like, it's okay. All Might won. He defeated All for One. But he's still
putting the pressure on us to continue.
It's not even that. It's not even like he doesn't even feel that. He just realizes All Might can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. Like he's past the anger at this point where he's just like he's like struggling to. It's like All Might's larger than life for all of them. Like, he is the number one hero. Like, as long as he's around, things will be okay. And, like, he just proved it. Like, this guy who obliterated an entire city with a flick of his fingers, All Might defeated him. Everything's okay. Until they realize All Might can't do it anymore. Like, that's the last time he's going to save them.
And then very commonly known, probably at this point, in the media, and it's like, we have that theory about quirks becoming more and more powerful until this apocalyptic situation comes. I don't remember.
That's what the third movie's about.
Yeah, I don't remember what the name of that theory is.
The Quirk Doomsday Theory or something like that.
And so this is something that's kind of buzzing in the media, and with All Might
gone,
it's going to explode, and I think he knows this very well, because he's probably been thinking about it since he found out about All for One and One for All. So,
I mean, as far as he's concerned, his quirk could be one of the first steps toward Quirk Doomsday Theory because he's that powerful.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, so it's probably something that's crossed his mind from time to time, where growing up, where he knows this is something that could be a reality because it's something that's a part of, common social.
But now the mantle
theories.
is being placed back on him and Deku. Like, there is no more time. All Might's done. So him and Deku are gonna have to be the next. Yep, it's their turn.
And lo and behold, we have some officers at the door.
Yeah.
And so he's gonna find out about his dad.
Yeah.
And that's where we end.
I mean, like, he knows, like, when they,
ouch.
When they open the door.
And you left us like that.
Well, I won't leave you for 3 weeks this time, at least.
Was that 3 weeks? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's gonna be 2. Yeah, because we went on vacation. It was a 3-week
right.
break. Hey, I left them on a pretty good spot for a 3-week break. I feel like at least on the last chapter, it's like, okay, he's in the hospital, he's recovering, and it's gonna be good. And then I come back and shatter all your hearts. I'm sorry. I really didn't want to do this one, but it was like, once I had the idea, I'm just like, oh man, this is too good. I can't, like, once you get the whole story on this, you'll understand why I couldn't not do it.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
But
so yeah. That's the chapter.
Yes, chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys are gonna keep coming back. Oh man, I can't wait to hear.
I'm curious to hear the thoughts, because these guys always have really interesting thoughts, especially with twists like this.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what the theories are. It's like, what did Kurai's dad do? Like, what caused him to work with All for One?
What caused him to change his mind and lose his life?
Yes.
So we know he made some deal. Something changed.
He went back on the deal, and he was killed for it.
And we know,
what's going to make this all so much worse is that Kurai has no idea that his dad was in All for One's pocket. Like,
not yet.
I'll tell you that. Like, I'll tell you this. Like, just as a fun tidbit for the video alone, it's like Kurai doesn't know Akurui, for all of his intelligence and like natural suspicion of other people. Like, no idea that his father could even be capable of something like that. Like, no one knows.
And it's like, it's clear by his interaction. It's like, he seems like he has good intentions for everything he's doing. Like, he's out there supporting his fellow cops, and he's putting in extra hours because he knows everybody else is. So it's like, it's not like he's, like, evil-hearted. No. But people often make bad choices with the right intentions.
Yeah, that's true enough.
And that's what that's looking like it's what the case is here. Yeah. So, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you come back for the next one. I hope I haven't driven some people away with how much I'm jerking you around.
There's been some book series where authors have done stuff like this to me, and I just throw it, and I'm done. I'm like, no, I'm not finishing this. You're torturing me too much. I can't.
Divergent series? Is that the one you're thinking of?
No, not that one. No, that's a different one. It was the Maze Runner series.
Maze Runner series, my bad.
When I was like, when that series was first coming out, I remember reading through. I think I got
it was like the second book.
It was the second book.
You just threw the book across the room.
I threw it. I was done. I'm like, you're not yanking. I think I was actually.
Please don't throw your Please don't throw your computers if you're or your phones, like wherever you're reading this. Please don't do that.
No. You can print it out and tear it up.
Yeah, there you go. That makes you feel better. Please go ahead by all means.
Recycle your paper. Feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
If that helps you.
So we'll be back for the next chapter in a couple of weeks, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say in the meantime. Until the next one, stay plus ultra, everybody.